Welcome back. You're still watching DayBreak on this first day of February 2022, and it's an important day because in some 8 days' time, then public officers, whether they are state officers or civil servants, they will be expected to quit office if they want to run for elective seats, and I have 3 of them. Should I begin by asking them when they're resigning? Engineer Mosonik, when are you leaving?
I've already had a tour of my resignation letter, and, I'm just waiting for a response. So by 8th, I should be able to be going home.
So when did you submit your letter?
I did almost a week ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm ready, really, to go.
CS Alachi?
We left.
Oh, you did? When was that?
No, we leave on 8th. We've handed over.
Okay.
Yes.
Handed over. So when did you submit your letter?
Well,
Yeah.
You've been helped for that long, you can't even remember.
We keep quiet. We wait.
Okay. CS Mungaro?
Yes, I did. I followed the law. I'm waiting for an answer.
Okay.
Whether I've been cleared.
When did you write your letter?
Since 8th of last month.
8th of January.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's sort of a month's notice.
Yeah.
But Engineer Mosonik, what has been your experience, especially managing the different dockets that you have, that now inform you need to go for that next level, which is in politics? I mean, after spending almost 30 years in the private and public sector, what informs this desire?
I think it's very interesting to know. You see, I've worked in various areas. I'm a telecoms engineer, actually, by training. And then apart from that, I've worked in private sector. I've worked in government, Minister of Industrialization, and then again, PS Infrastructure. And now CS Petroleum and Mining. So I think what you normally say is management is universal. You can be able to do anything in every department. So what involves me is, I think the most exciting part of my working experience is when I was actually PS Roads. PS Roads, I came in contact with the locals in every part of Kenya, in Malindi, in Bajia, and the other parts of Kenya. So I began really to appreciate what is going on in the rural areas, especially in terms of infrastructure development. And apart from that, looking the kind of rural life, which really, if we do much as government, we should be able to uplift. So I think what informed me is the kind of wealth of experience which I would think, in my opinion, and again, honest opinion, is if we take it to the rural areas, and this is an opportunity really to go and work within in the county, really to be able to pass that experience, so that we focus. And this was a very good idea in terms of devolution, to focus into some of those key priorities which can be able to lift up the economy of this country. I think that is it. So model experience, the kinds of management of government systems. I've worked in government so I know how the government actually works. And apart from that, in terms of implementation for most of the projects, and then just something which you mentioned again in terms of installing systems in place so that you can be able to utilize public resources in an effective manner. I think that is more or less the way I look at it myself, yeah.
Okay, and we'll be talking more about especially what you want to do for the people of Bomet.
Right.
But Honorable Mungaro, then for you, I mean, you've been through it all, political systems, whether it's at the local government level, as a member of parliament, legislating for this country, and now in government as CAS. What was it like for you transitioning from active politics to now more or less assisting the cabinet secretary in terms of policy preparation?
I think it was a good experience, and it prepares me to go for governor, having been in politics, and especially having started as a councillor, mayor, MP for 10 years, and now in cabinet. I've been able to see the difference of the political office and the executive. And I think the difference is not so much. What I would say is because in the politics you engage more the voter, while in government you engage more your fellow, your colleagues, to run the day-to-day business. I think it was an eye-opener on how things work within government and within the political circles.
Did they get concerning for you at some point because used to this political activity, now all of a sudden you have to be quiet, listen, and speak when necessary?
When I was in lands, actually, I thought people should work a bit faster because you see there are programs which have been left since 1972. And some of these issues you look at and you wonder, why has this program not been completed when it was 95% complete? But then somebody goes and starts a new project and leaves the one which is 95% completion. So basically, I think there's a lot of laxity with some junior officers, basically, of not thinking, this one can wait. Yeah,
it's not a priority.
While when you are in within your political circles, you know, you have also pressure from Wananchi. Every day you are reminded, Mheshimiwa, you promised us water. Mheshimiwa, you promised us classrooms. So you are kept on your toes always. Unlike in the government office, the bureaucracy and procedures to implement such programs. When you are the member of parliament, the only thing you have to follow is to get your CDF money to your constituency. And once it's there, then the Constituency Development Fund Committee will implement your projects. That's the difference.
Right, and I'll come back for more. But Honorable Elachi, so if you're successful on the 9th of August, then it will be the first time that you're occupying an elective office because Speaker, you're elected by the members of the County Assembly. And previously you served at the Senate, but I see you've done quite a bit of work on matters, gender, and focus on women issues. But what has this stint, it's almost a year, as a CAS, how has it informed your work and even the next phase that you're going, especially in understanding how government systems work, so that when people are clamoring for action, then you know there's another level of bureaucracy that government is. What has it taught you?
One of the things that government has taught me is that while we elect leaders, the biggest challenge that they will always face, even the president, is that if your civil service servants are not in tandem with what you really want, then they can really derail you. That you can even come out and be very honest and you're willing to change things, but if they don't, they will just use the law. And they can read that law in any way, and that will be your bottleneck. And they will come and they will tell you, the Procurement Act says this, the procedure is this. They will take you for 3 months, you have not started your project. You have promised wananchi. They will take you to another 6 months, is when they are finalizing. So by the time you're coming to implement, if you don't have that toughness a bit, they can become, indeed, the ones who will derail your governments. And I will tell you, if you are a good CEO and you come in with your structure framework, looking at the law and how you can move with things, then you can work. But if you come in and you leave it to them and they feel today, the president can say this today, trust me, they'll come tomorrow, they'll bring him a presentation. The next day they'll tell you the procurement officer, Your Excellency, was in Kwale. So this week we have not been able to do this. I am telling you, Sam, that is how frustrating it is. So the first thing that government has to do, indeed, civil servants must appreciate that these are things that you have to do for wananchi. But when you find a civil servant who tells you, nimefanya kazi hapa miaka 30, trust me, you are in hell. Because for him, he knows 30, with my pension, with everything, who cares? You will leave us here. In fact, they normally tell the political leaders, you have come, umetupata na utatuacha tu, tumeona wengi. So Kenyans should understand the challenge we face, and I've always said, especially in civil service, people who would wish to take you to the next level are within that bracket of the ones who are managers, directors going up. If they are really willing to transform this country, they can transform. But if they are willing for the entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, oh, you are in trouble. That is how you find your government in corruption. Because I always ask people, by the time I'm doing evaluation, procurement, for it to move, surely, even if, why can't I just say and advise kindly, let us do it this way, we will move together. But I know sometimes also our bosses can be a bit harsh. So you have advised him, but because he's the boss, he'll tell you, apana, tunaenda hivyo. Those are the challenges. But let me tell you, if we just get us, but also appreciating the civil servants. One of the other things we have done in this country that has made them also feel very disappointed is that, so I come in as a CS. I have advisor 1, 2, 3, 4. But you find people within the ministry are feeling very, very sad that you see, for us we've worked, people are not looking, appreciate them. Right. If they have done for you a paper, always, it doesn't take it much, just make that person stand, recognize the work they have done. Those are some of the small things we have left many civil servants feeling, I do all this work. I see how things are moving, but you can't even appreciate me. You can't even say, I had a team that has made my name come to this level. This is the team. Your Excellency, this is the team. Even just
that's
looking
interesting, CS. Just allow me to cut it short, because you've been in that space of the public service. So what have you been able, as a ministry, and as CS specifically, to really change this attitude or the culture within public service? Or is it so difficult that nothing much can be done?
No, it's not difficult. I believe I have told my head of public service, Dr. Kenya, I've told him. I've been honest. I've said it is time we start appreciating civil servants so that they can have the heart to also serve, so that they can feel they are part of the process. They are not just there to do. And also enable them to move to their grades according to the way the law says. If it says 7 years, promote. Don't leave others. You see, there's also another culture that you promote this, you leave this ministry, you leave this. I think what our CS has been trying to do is to harmonize. And that one I want to thank really our CS Margaret Kobia, trying to harmonize, to bring back and see every ministry. If there are promotions, let it go across board. Let me not go to another ministry, the driver is at this job group, I go to another ministry, the driver is at a lower job group. So what's the difference? Because he will move to that ministry and another one will move to that ministry. Those are some of the things we are saying. Let us realign for people to feel. But one of the things through the legacy of His Excellency, the President, I think he has tried his best to look across, to see how to build consensus and bring civil servants to feel, if I am in any ministry, I am working in a ministry of government. Because some people feel this ministry is more powerful than this one. You try and just moderate. Let people feel I am working for a government, not for this ministry because it is good, and this other ministry is not good, and this one. And Public Service Commission, I want to really appreciate the work they've been doing. They've been trying also now to bring internship from the 290 constituency, not like before, but now I want to really request them. It is time you look and harmonize. Use a way of harmonizing everything so that every person within a job group, and if they are drivers, let them all be drivers with the same thing.
All right, I hear you. And Engineer Mosonik, because you've had that opportunity to be a PS and CAS, have you felt that culture of people saying that we've been many, you'll come and go? And what have you specifically done, especially in the departments that you've worked in, to change such kind of a culture towards service delivery?
I think, let me start with, you know, if there's any time probably where I've really enjoyed, I told you I've worked in private sector, I've worked in parastatals. If there is time really where I've cherished working is actually in government. And government can be efficient as you can see in other private sector. I think that is something which is very, very important. So it depends on when you really come. And what is important is if the roles are very, very clear, what you're supposed to do. And then how can you be able to motivate your workforce to be able to achieve those kind of objectives? So if I can give you an example, you know, when I was appointed PS Roads, of course, roads, they have their own culture and so on. And imagine again in the sense that I wasn't very experienced in that kind of field. But I came in, you know, studied, and the officers there actually also taught me the kind of technical issues. But you see what you call the universal kind of management, which you are saying culture, the system should be in place, and then the clarity of roles, what you are supposed to do. I think there shouldn't be any problem in terms of the only difference, which I would say actually between maybe private sector and the government is, of course, the process in which whatever any kind of resolution has to be approved. I think that is the only thing. But in terms of execution, it depends always on the accounting officer. It depends on the management. And if the managers are very honest, if the managers regular kind of meetings, there shouldn't be any problem in terms of culture. So you can calculate the culture as soon as you come in as a manager, and people also watch you how you really do the work. So I think that should not be an issue. And maybe something else which I should be able to. In terms of clarity, what exactly are we supposed to do and how much money should be able to spend on that kind of, let's say, project? So if the people or if the officers actually know that you have hands-on in terms of what they are supposed to do, there shouldn't be any problem, because there should be review kind of meetings as you move forward, which will address those issues in terms of culture, if there's any laxity in terms of prudence use of the resources, in terms of meeting the deadlines and all those kind of issues. So I would say, again, our civil service, our civil servants are the best trained, qualified people, according to my experience, which I've seen all day.
Based on experience. Yeah. But, you know, the area of infrastructure and roads is one of those that different political leaders will use to woo voters. It's already happening that whether it's the presidential candidates or aspirants or even for different seats, they come and say that we are going to do this project for you, and so people vote with that expectation that a certain project will be done. So how do you reconcile the political promise versus the feasibility studies of a project and eventually how to implement? Do you implement based on the political promise or based on need?
I think more or less on the needs. You see, before you start implementing any other project, normally there are some plans which go after about 3, 4, 5 years ahead. So there are some studies which are normally carried out. It's required in this area and so on and so on. So it's only quite often a privilege that politicians get to know that kind of information, and they can be able to use really to drive their own agenda. But I wouldn't say you have to, what do you call a balancing act there? So what do you call the commitment, let's say, by the government that you want to do this, and then you translate that one probably into what is required in terms of financial resources and so on. So I wouldn't say, and if you look again, the current government, like let's say from 2013, the Jubilee government, you see the CSS and the PSS, those were appointed. They're unlike probably in the past where they've been actually elected. So based on that, we actually implement government projects, not the one. And then being government project is this what the government says, okay, commit, this is what we are going to do within the next 5 years. If it is like, let's say, roads 10,000 kilometers in 5 years. So that is exactly which we translate and see which areas actually are we picking those ones in terms of priority? So we reconcile again, we look at the backward what was in the plan, and then what is required, and then we reconcile and then we move forward. So still I would say again, you see the whole kind of process go through Parliament in terms of approval, in terms of, the budget and so on. So politicians quite often, they get access to see what is it in their areas. And in some cases, of course, they push and give you priorities, but they must be in compliance with what is in the plan.
The reason I'm asking that question, Honorable Mungaro, is because for quite some time, there's been this perception that certain areas are left out of development programs because of their political affiliation. Do you find the political preference of different regions having a heavy bearing in informing what programs are implemented by a government?
Yes, it does. I think there's some instances where for many years, things were not being developed in certain areas. Of course, preference was given to areas where people voted for certain regime of government. I must say in the Jubilee government, there was a big change. With my experience, is that President Kenyatta has been doing projects all over the country. I'm saying this because, for example, in Kilifi, we had one road between Mombasa, Mutwapa, Malindi, up to Garsen. That was the main tarmac road. And a small piece between Mariakani and Kaloleni town. And now we have roads from Kaloleni to Kilifi, Mariakani to Bamba, Malindi to the park, Salagate, Magarini, Kilifi town, and Malindi, and many other areas where the government have done new infrastructure, roads, water, many other areas the government has come in to do project this last 10 years. If you look back, you'll realize that yes, before probably the systems were also different, because there was also no devolution. Because devolution also is playing its roles at the local level. But as national government, I think the only time I've seen really national government coming in to do many projects is the last 10 years. And like before, during the 24 years of KANU and also the time of NAC, yeah, I think when CDF came on in 2002, CDF took the role of national government, and the national government itself did not come in very much. It was the members of parliament who did their work through CDF, but not the national government with the big infrastructure projects which are going on now at the coast especially. Right.
Of course, and CS Elachi, so now having been able to work in all these, excuse me, having been able to work in all these sectors, then as you move to the next level, what must politicians, especially those that are lawmakers, what must they know when they are engaging these government agencies, whether it's at the county level or at the national level, and pushing for the interests that they think are in the best interest of the voters?
You see, one of the things that, especially for those new ones who are coming in, you find that you have to really appreciate that at the national level, we have very serious resources that you need to tap on to bring to the counties. As much as we give counties their allocation, but there are many projects of national government which will still go within the counties, but it is now for the members of parliament to work closely with the government to be able to tap on those resources. And that is why you find some members of parliament do very well in terms of working with government. You go to their constituencies, they have developed. You wonder how have they brought in these schools. You wonder how. It's because you work closely with government. You work closely with the different ministries that are there. And so that is why when we look at our constitution, it is a constitution that appreciates that we will have opposition and we will have government. But when it comes now to working, you work with government for your people to benefit. So even if I'm in opposition, I'm not an enemy of government. The constitution within parliament especially allows me, first of all, to forget about all these things that we have parties, but to look at the different committees that you have in parliament. What are those committees doing? They look at every sector. And so if it's the sector of agriculture, you know where to go and get the resources for your people. If it's the sector of health, the same. The sector of education, especially when you look at CDF, it's aligned so much on security and education. And so you can thrive on that if you work closely with government. But if you put in an eye and blind yourself that because my leader is not talking to government, so I'm not going to get, then you'll have a problem. And I know many people who have benefited. Mheshimiwa of Ugenya, David has worked with government regardless of how. You go to Ugenya, you salute the work he has done. And so there are models we can borrow and work and see. You go to Nyali, like Jichopevu, hate him, but he has worked. And he has done something fantastic in 5 years where people are wondering, is this what CDF can do? So you can transform your constituency, regardless of how you look at it. What we have to ask ourselves, that is something we have to also harmonize. You realize, Sam, you find a governor has bursary. CDF has bursary. Women rep has bursary. MCA has bursary. Senator, I will not say, but these other ones, they have bursary. Why can't you sit together as a county and agree so that every child in that county, you don't find others going, others have been left, yet you have a huge kitty of bursaries, but you have just refused to harmonize. It's not saying bring your money, but if you send your list and say, I am taking care of this, constituency X, I'm taking care of this. Governor, now you take care of the rest, we are leaving. But in that county, you can walk a journey together to see the education of those children grow. Instead of this, and we lose a lot of money. The same with the health. We are talking of universal health care. We can sit as a county. Health is devolved. But then NHIF is still at the national government, which works with us. How do you ensure every person in your county, family, are able to just get an NHIF card to take care? If you sit down, all of you together, the same. Then we look at now the roads. So there's a road crossing and it will cross to that county. Why can't you merge together your resources for purposes of just building together that county? The challenge we face, Sam, is this thing, we come in with our political animals and we become so selfish. So I can be doing some good things in my constituency. The next constituency, people are wondering, is this the same Mheshimiwa who is here and here? Because they are not understanding how that growth is growing. So I am hoping 2022, going forward as new leaders, we are able, when we are elected, sit down now together. All of you, you have an office to work. Appreciate and work together with your governors for the sake of Mwananchi, for the sake of what we are seeing now. The worst we have done is social fabric in our country. That social fabric is so sad. Because that is where Mwananchi is. That is where he's crying. That is where those small SMEs are wondering, why is it we are not growing? Yet everything has a structure, has a mechanism, and there are resources, but we loot the resources. But if we work together, we can change the lives of our people. Okay, all right. And I'll be asking you, especially the former PS here, on what amount of pressure has been from the political class. But I also want us to take a look at some of the election timelines that were released by IEBC on the 21st of January 2022, when IEBC declared or gazetted the notice of the general election. And one of those is that now the Electoral Code of Conduct and the Election Offences Act of 2016 are in operation. And this means that any politician, whatever they're doing on the ground, will be monitored by IEBC, and any complaints will be dealt with based on those laws and provisions. And then also is that, yes, it was gazetted that the elections would be in those areas, 290 constituencies for Member of Parliament, 47 counties for senators, women representatives, and county governors, and then 1,450 wards for members of county assemblies across the country. And these are just some of the provisions of the Electoral Code of Conduct on condemning and refrain from violence and intimidation, avoid hate speech, campaigns in places of worship, burial ceremonies. I don't know how well the political class is able to observe that. And then also to avoid plagiarizing symbols, colors, and acronyms of other parties, refrain from offering rewards to influence political decisions. That's a very important point on rewards as the different politicians go to the campaign trail. Refrain from abuse of position of power, privilege, or influence. Avoid discrimination on election and political activity. And that use of position, that's why the public servants are required to resign 6 months to the election. If any of the aspirants is caught in the wrong, then there could be a formal warning, fines, which are to be determined by IBC,
or prohibit a political party from using any public media allocated airtime. What more can happen is that prohibit a political party or candidate from holding meetings in certain areas, and also bar a political party or candidate from publishing or distributing campaign literature, that is, in case they are caught in the wrong. And then also a party that defaults in payment of a fine may be prohibited by IEBC from participating in the 2022 general election or future elections until the fine is paid. Of course, there are so many other provisions of the law that we'll be looking at. And let me begin with you, Engineer Mosonik. As we get into the campaign trail, what is this that you are offering the people of Bomet?
Yes, again, thank you very much, sir. Going back to what I'd said earlier about the experience, in fact, I'm privileged. I'd like to work in those ministries which actually form part of the priorities which I'm going to do in Bomet. One, of course, is the infrastructure, which is a key enabler in any kind of economic development. So first and foremost is we are looking at priorities in those areas. The other aspect probably where I worked also is in terms of manufacturing. And if you look at these two or three, actually, they fall within the big four, which the government is actually trying to push that agenda. So I have a 10-point plan, which I really want to do, let's say, for Bomet. One, of course, is access to quality healthcare, which I think is more or less applies to probably other counties. But I'm taking this one as a priority because you cannot be, as a leader, you cannot be able to lead people if they are not very healthy, if they are not really access to quality care and affordable. Again, you see quite often also in the rural areas, the affordability is a key issue. Now, the other issue, of course, is infrastructure, which we are still, again, going to fix the infrastructure because, again, it will, reduce the transportation cost and the others. Now, the other, Bomet being an agro-based, county, so I think this is an area where we are going to look at various sectors, components within the agriculture. We'll be looking at the agribusiness in terms of produce, marketing their produce. Apart from that, also, we'll be looking at value addition, which, again, we need to look at how can we add value. We had, let's say, potatoes, how can we add value, or dairy, how can we be able to add value? Because adding value, it means you have to put in a facility which can be able to transform the inputs into outputs. And from that, they create what you call the employment within this sector, as well as also increase the profit margin, let's say, from them. Now, the other issue which I see is actually, let's say, food security, which is, again, affect affect the entire country. So we tell, again, I see Bomet, you see averagely people have 3 to 5 acres, and then those 5 acres, maybe 3 or 4 are under tea or any other kind of thing. So they have a minimal kind of, acreage really to play around to see what they can be able to do. So we are looking forward within the next 3-4 years, if we don't really transform in terms of diversification and so on, we may not, or we will be faced with this kind of food security, which we are discussing. Now, the other issue which affects Bomet, of course, is water. We have water, access to clean water, especially in some parts of Chibalungu. They don't have water. They use the kind of, let's say, from water pumps and so on. So I think this is a priority, again, which I want to fix to make sure that there's a progression in terms of provision for those clean water harvesting, and then you sink boreholes, and then before you go to major projects. Now, the other issue which I'm looking at is in terms of employment, let's say, for the youth. If you see 60% of Bomet residents are youth below 35. And then something very interesting is most of these youths are unemployed. So I think as government, we should be able to see the best way how we can be able to create economic activity which can be able to employ these young people. Quite often I say government cannot be able to absorb all this, youth, but we must be as leaders again. So I have in mind in terms of this value addition will be able to create employment. The manufacturing, we can identify a component which you can be able to manufacture. And again, Sam, I told you I work in Ministry of Industrialization at some stage where we created some what we call constituency industrial development centers. What it means is, let's say we identify a component, let's say for a vehicle which can be able to manufacture, and within the kind of key quality or stringent requirements. So once we identify, with the government will invest in what we call the capital equipment, which we call cutting machine, bending machine, and all those. So the people can come, or the youth can come and, do whatever they want and then go and assemble that kind of product. So I'm seeing that one. One, of course, is creating economic activities, manufacturing, workshops. We identified those type of issues, and then we can be able to. But the future, which I have for Bomet, especially for the youth, is we look at manufacturing, we look at even sports as a business. We look at even the ICT incubation centers, which we can be able again to work on, so that we can be able to provide. Now, we see the other issue which I'm looking at is, let us create economic activities which also the county can be able to create to earn revenue out of that. There are simple things which I always say in terms of, let's say, hospitality. We want to see the governor being able also to be marketing activities, let's say, within the county. For example, let's say hospitality industries, or hospitality like hotels and the others. So the issue is you create events and then give instructions to your government or the government that as soon as we come to facilitate within the conference your hotel, that one should be paid immediately. Or we host, let's say, conferences, which again the hospitality industries can be able to flourish. So there are quite a lot of things which I'm looking at. Now, the other aspect which I'm looking at is...
I'll get back to you with more, because I would wish we limited to maximum 3 most pressing issues. And for you, Honorable Mungaro, you've tried That's It one time, wasn't so lucky. What is this that you want to do for Kilifi? The 3 key things that you think are the most important for the people of Kilifi?
I think Kilifi, what it needs is... if you check the many problems you face in Kilifi, there are many issues, but I would prioritize agriculture and water so that we can have food security. Why agriculture and water is because the biggest problem we face in Kilifi at the moment is water supply. Health will be my second biggest priority I have for Kilifi. I'm starting with water because I realized when I was a member of parliament, it's better to fix water first before you build the dispensaries, because if you have clean water, then you reduce diseases, then that way you can probably build less hospitals. My aim is to try to connect clean water to the people of Kilifi, build water dams and water ponds where necessary to encourage irrigation so that we can have food security. The other priority is also education. I have seen the county government has been allocating a lot of resources on education, especially bursaries. But what my government will do is to make sure that we have a data to be able to see where the money goes. Many counties and many constituencies gives bursaries to students, but it's dished out by either MCAs or the CEC education. But after that, there's no monitoring and evaluation to see that we have given 500 million shillings worth of bursary. How many kids are really in school? People deliver bursaries, kids are given 5,000, 10,000. 500 million, yes, is spent. But how many of these kids you have given 500 million shillings have either completed O-level and transited to university colleges? Yeah.
That's an important point, because, Honorable Mungaro, on several occasions, once KCSE results are released and you have to look at the transition rates for children who finished KCPE and 4 years later that are able to transition into, out of KCSE, the rates are lowest at the coast, and Kilifi County is one of those. So what specific intervention would you be looking at to make sure that there's that at least maximum transition for children that are going through this basic education?
What I'm intending to do is to work with the local county administrators, the local government administration systems to the sub-location level, so that we are able, and it's nothing which I'm going to start. I did it when I was MP for Malindi. I had a target of my CDF that I'll give CDF to the poor children, but I have a target of 100 kids per year to make sure that if they come from poor families and they have performed well, they will be paid fully their school fees. Because that's the only way you can be able to account for that you have change on issues of education. If it's only a matter of distributing bursaries, you will give everybody 10,000, 20,000, 10,000. But there are some kids you give today a check of 10,000. By the time they arrive at the school, the principal will receive the check, give them a receipt, and return them home. But probably they'll even be scared to come back to your office and say, sorry, I got the 10,000. When I arrived at the school, I was sent back. They feel so frustrated that they go home and sit, you thinking you have helped one kid to go to school, but in reality, they are sitting at home. So I think there must be a mechanism whereby you will have different categories of the bursary disbursement, that you will give help parents who probably are overburdened, but they can afford. Then the poor kids who have performed well.
Okay.
And when you pay for them, then you monitor from when they start their Form 1 to O levels. Then after O levels, what I used to do in my constituency was the kids we were sponsoring, at the end of the term or semester, they must bring their report to my office so that I'm able to know that now they are going back and they're doing how they're doing in school, and we pay again. So we might need to have systems to check so that we are able to account after 5 years how many kids you have been able to educate. That's the only way you can change
I'd actually want to set some figures, because in the KCSE of 2020, there were 15,832 candidates from Kilifi. But 4 years earlier, KCPE 2016, there were 30,225 children that sat that examination. So almost 50% of that class did not transition at the expected time. We asked questions to the Ministry of Education where they were. There were not very firm answers on where they had fallen off in the system. Honorable Elachi, what do you want to do for the people of Dagoretti North?
Well, you know, I go back to the same policies that I really wanted to do in 2017. And one of the things that I know many people suffer in Dagoretti North, remember this is Nairobi, so everyone comes in to look for employment, to look for something to do. But my first agenda is in education, so that the children within Dagoretti North, especially those who live within Kawangware, can be able to go to school and just transit and follow them. Track them until you find them. They have moved to colleges, to universities, and be able just to have a life, to change that life. When you look at Dagoretti North at the moment, I'll tell you, Sam, if you drive now, right now, you'll find very many young children, some on wheelchairs, being pushed in. I just want to be very clear, and I want the government also to look at, okay, I've been tracking them. I've realized most of them are not Kenyans. So you can't push them to the agenda of education, because I wouldn't want to see young children on the road. The moment you leave young children to start begging now, it means in their whole life, that is the life they're going to live. I think that one, I want to try my best to see that 80 to 90% of the children of Dagoretti North will be in school. And the biggest challenge they face is that feeding program. And so for me, I have to work very closely with the county government and the national government, the Ministry of Education, to ensure we have a feeding program that children are able to be retained in school, because they walk away because of hunger. And you'll find in the evening, even if you pick a child, for example, at Valley Arcade, you will find yourself entering a home where indeed they were about to sleep hungry completely. They haven't seen food for 3 days. So I am willing and wishing to try and do that. The second thing, we have to get now our sub-county. You know, Dagoretti North, we don't have a sub-county where you can have your own DCC, your own ACCs, so that you are able to work together with the national government. For example, when they are about to go now for this, you want police, you find we will have to always go to Dagoretti South to do those things. If we are able to do that, then you'll know every year you have 5 young people who are transiting to become policemen, to become prison warders, to become the army. I mean, to join every institution of government that is there. And you are able also to track where our students who are in campus, what are they doing? How are we helping? How do we help our women? We have a market in Kawangware, I think for the years and years that we've had it. It is just there. Everyone has moved on the road. We want to have a better market where you accommodate everyone. And the most important thing to build Dagoretti North is through SMEs.
Okay.
And look for them spaces. And those who are even right now, just work with the county government to give them good kiosks where they can work together without removing, because that is where their livelihoods is.
All right.
The last thing is health. I think health is a critical agenda. Today, we are just doing fundraising for someone who is in Kenyatta, another fundraising, and then you find another fundraising for... And I think, for me, I would want to just come in and do, together with them, a holistic approach on how we get NHIF so that you're able to just manage your children, your lives. I know with the different agendas that are there, but we prioritize to achieve, at least in 1 year, you are able to stand and tell Kenyans, we have done this. We don't have the school, Sam. We have a school that was started with Ngumo. That's a girls' school in Lavington. To date, we need to transform it to be an excellent school of girls there. And to really ask the Ministry of Education, because you find all our schools are national schools. So where are the children of Dagoretti North going to school when they transit? We are going now to a CBC year 6. People are about to do exams. Right. I want to tell our ministry, and I want to beg my CS Makoha, some of the schools right now, even in Dagoretti North, they just need a place of home science. Those GCOs, they don't have at the moment, yet we are about to do the grade 6 CBC, and they are wondering how will we do it. So if we just have small gases being sent to these schools, so that when they do those exams, they are able to achieve like any other child, it will really help.
Okay, all right. Someone is saying something in my ear.